In the Adding Rooms movie, we saw the basics of how to add rooms and how they behave in your Revit project. In this project, we're going to take a slightly more systematic approach to adding the rooms with the intention of controlling the way the numbering occurs. Revit does a pretty good job of sequentially numbering things as you add them. We saw this back when we added column grids, and perhaps you've noticed it in some of the other objects you may have added. But even though it does number things sequentially, if you don't catch the numbering right away and set the proper first starting number, then all the sequential numbering could be wrong. So you're going to want to go in and make sure that you follow a systematic approach, and then you'll save yourself some renumbering effort later. So let's take a look. I'm going to go to the Home tab, and I'm here in a file called Office Rooms, and it's in the Chapter 9 folder, and we're in the first floor plan. And we've got a couple things going here. Of course, we've got our layout, and there already are some room separation lines. Now, before I go ahead and start adding the rooms in here, let me just do one little trick that's very common in many firms. It's sort of a very common practice thing to do, is I'm going to go to the Manage tab. Okay, on the Manage tab, under Additional Settings, I'm going to go to the Line Styles dialog. Now here, I'm going to take the Room Separation Line Styles, click its color, and change it to some bright, recognizable color, like orange. Click OK, and get back out of the dialog. Now that makes it very easy for me to see where the room separation lines are in this view. Later we can go into VG, Visibility Graphic Overrides, and we can actually turn off the room separation lines for printing purposes. But it would be nice to see where they are while we're working here. I'm going to go to the Home tab, and I'm going to click on Room. And I want to decide where I want my first room to be. So in this case, I'm going to use this room right here. This is going to be the lobby space, so I'll go ahead and make this the first room. Should be fairly obvious if you did the previous movie on adding rooms that we're getting a room and a room tag at the same time, but I just want to point out that the reason that's happening is because the Tag on Placement button is selected here. So we're going to go ahead and leave that selected, and I'm going to click right here. Now here's the trick, or here's the process that I want you to follow. I'm going to press Escape twice or click my Modify tool to cancel out of that command, because what I want to do next is click on the room tag, click right on the room number, and I want to change that number to whatever I want the first number to be. If you don't remember to do that, then the next number will just be 2, and then 3, and then 4, and you'll have to go back and renumber all these rooms later. But by remembering to change the number first, you save yourself a little bit of effort ongoing. So let me go to Room now, and I'll add this next one. And I'm not going to worry about the names. I showed you how to change the names in the Adding Rooms movie, so we're going to just leave them all Room for now. But you'll notice that that one says 102. And then we'll go down here, and we'll make this 103, 104, 105, 106, and 107. 108 here. And I'm going to stop there for a moment. You could do more of the same on the rest of the floor plan. But here's the second half of the technique that I want to share with you. This part of the floor plan is pretty much identical on the next floor of the building. At the very least, you have this corridor, you have these offices, and you have this conference room. So it's going to make some sense for me to get these as correct as possible before I go any further. Now these, I don't want to type them one at a time. I certainly could, office, 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 but that's a lot of typing. And it's only 4 offices here, but in your projects, if you have many more offices, you'll appreciate this next tip. I'm going to go to Filter, check None, and select Only Rooms. Sometimes people make a mistake here. They think they're editing the tags. You're editing the tags out of convenience, because that immediately changes the property on the room itself. But what you're editing is the rooms, not the tags. The tags always get their data from the rooms, and that's true of any tag in Revit. The tag is always reading the data off the object, not the other way around. So I have those 4 rooms selected, and over here on the Properties palette, you can see that they all share the name Room, and I'm going to type in Office. Now I want to point out one other thing here that you should be aware of. The number, unfortunately, in Revit, I hope they change this in some future version of Revit, but the number, because they don't share the same number, what Revit does is it just blanks out the field. It shows nothing. I would prefer if they put the word varies in there or something along those lines to indicate to me that each of these rooms do actually have a number, but they just vary from one another. So be careful, because if I were to click in there right now and type a new number, it would actually change the number of all 4 rooms to the same number, and that's probably not what you'd want. So even though it's blank, it looks like there's no value. sometimes being blank just simply means that there's multiple values and it can't show you anything. So now you see I have the 4 offices have all changed to office, and what I'm going to do is make another selection like so, filter again, check none. I want rooms, and this time I also want room tags, and I'm going to click OK. This room right here is the only one that I'm going to actually create manually on the second floor. So it was easier to just make a window selection and get all of them, but what I'm going to do now is use my Shift key and deselect that room. Now I'm doing this in a very small file. This technique would work equally well in any size file, and I think it will have more value for you when you see it in very large floor plans, but you'll see the idea very quickly once I'm finished here. I'm going to use the copy button, copy to clipboard, or I could type Control-C. I'm going to go up to level 2, and here's the trick. Go to the Home tab and create a new room. Now, this is why I'm showing you the whole process in the first place. Notice that the room went to room number 109. That's because that's just where it happened to leave off. Revit doesn't figure out that we're on the second floor and say, oh, would you like this one to be a 20 number? We have to do that ourselves. So I'm going to come in here and make this 201. Okay, so that's sort of the next step of the process. And now I'm going to go to Modify. You rarely want to use Control-V in Revit, because if you paste model geometry in Revit, it will want you to move it as well. I don't know why this is, it just does. So Control-V is not recommended. You always want to use the tool here on the Modify tab. Click the drop down, and you can see there are several options that all say aligned in the name. So we're able to paste geometry from one floor of the building to another floor of the building and keep it lined up in exactly the same spot. So that's really handy. And in this case, I'm going to say, let's align it to the current view, second floor in this case. Now, when it does, you see all those rooms paste right into the correct locations in the new offices. And more importantly, take a look at the numbers. That one's 202, 203, 204, and so on. So the numbering now picks up from where it left off, which happens to be 201. So if you've got a 10-story building, you're going to want to do this paste aligned one at a time, one floor at a time. You're going to add your 301 on the third floor and then paste align. Then you're going to add your 401 on the fourth floor and paste align. And if you do it that way, you could save yourself a lot of effort in manually renumbering when you have the same floor plate, floor after floor after floor. Now, if the floors are all different, then you basically just have to add all the rooms manually. But if the floors have a lot of repetitive layout, then this is going to save you a lot of time. I'll just make one other mention that if you happen to have access to some of the third-party plugins that are available out there, there are third-party plugins which make short work of renumbering. So the technique I'm giving you here is just working within the confines of the out-of-the-box Revit software. If you happen to have one of those plugins that allows you to do room renumbering quickly, then you certainly could use that as an alternative.